So whether you're an experienced mage or just getting started, the Season of Discovery Mage is a version of the class we've never seen before, and it's extremely powerful, but only if you know how to use it. Well, I figured all this out and we'll get right into it, just don't forget to subscribe. Now before you even log into the game, it's really important for Mage that you have RestedXP installed. Season of Discovery Guide has the runes built right into it, and it even has AoE guides specifically for your faction of Mage. Just be sure to use code Kippzord for a discount. Now when you actually load into the game, the starting levels are very familiar to normal vanilla Mage. The runes that we're starting off with are really nothing special because you're unable to get anything crazy like Arcane Surge or Living Bomb for a little while. But that doesn't mean that you're suffering until you get those, and let me explain how. Some of these, like Ice Lance at level 3, is nothing special, but once you get other runes like Living Flame and Burnout, they can start having a huge impact on your leveling. Living Flame probably seems like not a great spell and it's kind of wonky whenever you first get it, but whenever you use it properly, it can be a complete game changer. Most mages are going to have to take some time figuring this out, but lucky for you, I can just tell you exactly how it works. Just like the way that it looks in game, it puts down a little trail of fire going towards the mob whenever you use it. But the key thing to focus on is keeping the mobs in that fire no matter what. If the mob moves, the Living Flame will follow it, sure, but it will not cause damage during the time that it's not directly under it. The most reliable way to do this, all the way up to level 25, is to just let the mob hit you. And while this might feel awkward at first, you can pretty easily do this with 3 mobs at once anytime that Living Flame is off cooldown. Get in the habit of doing this and it will increase your leveling speed dramatically. And speaking of burning things, you'll need to find another player to unfreeze the burnout rune, but in the event that you can't, you could substitute it for the enlightenment chest rune. However, it's definitely a downgrade, and playing by its rules don't really get you adequate rewards. Of course, like all casters, it's a good idea to invest in some wands, that way you can use it whenever you run out of mana. Another good investment is buying ice cold milk, which after level 5 is much better than the water that you can conjure. And normally I don't recommend doing any professions, but tailoring is always a good pickup on Mage since we can use our cloth for that over first aid since we can just eat our conjured food. You can execute mobs with Fire Blast or Ice Lance if they're low and you don't want to hard cast something, and you can always write simple macros to slash cast spells, so that way you don't have to constantly put the higher ranks on your bars whenever you train them. The big thing whenever you hit level 10 is Frost Nova, because we can use it to root enemies in our Living Flame, so that way we don't have to take their damage anymore. At level 10 you can conjure level 5 water, so stop buying milk unless if you just want to save time conjuring it. And now for which talents to level as. TLDR, you can do whatever you want. Every written guide that I've seen has recommended Frost, and tons of videos that I've watched have said Fire or Arcane. Usually when it comes to Mage, I just do whatever Criteria does, but it doesn't look like he's playing SoD, which is too bad. So I'll go over some pros and cons of each one. Major thing that Frost has going for it is rushing to Ice Shards, which has great synergy with Burnout. You also get the hit rating from Elemental Precision right in the tree, you don't have to go into a different tree for it. I gave Frostbite a try with Fingers of Frost to see if they always proc at the same time like they do in Wrath, and they do. So I wouldn't recommend using both of these together, it's just overkill. Since Fingers of Frost is a chest rune, you could just run Frostbite with Burnout if you want. As for Arcane, it's a solid choice because of clear casting, and it's the premier option if you're AoEing most of the time. It lacks the lower cast time on Fireball or Frostbolt, which is very good at lower levels when you don't have Arcane Blast yet. And it also doesn't have any crit damage multiplier, which we really want since we're getting 15% crit from Burnout. My recommendation is going to be the same as RestedXP, which is Fire from 10 to 20. Fire is really strong in this level bracket, specifically because Fireball outclasses Frostbolt a huge amount of the time due to getting higher ranks sooner. Without the deeper frost talents like Shatter, frost spells in general aren't that powerful, although at higher level ranges they are more mana efficient. I went and improved Fireball, then Ignite, which is great with Burnout, then putting the rest of the points in Burning Soul for the pushback reduction, Flamethrowing, or Elemental Precision in Frost, whatever order you want. You can also mess around and get Impact for the stun if you want. Although these talents affect your fire spells, they don't really affect AoE farming all that much since you're using Living Flame and Living Bomb, and the only parts of those that can crit is the Living Bomb explosion. Now that your talents are planned out, you can get a greater magic wand as soon as you're level 13, and you should for multiple reasons. 1, it's very cheap and crafted by enchanters. 2, it's extremely high DPS for its level, and 3, it's an arcane damage wand. Around level 12 to 14, you can get the Regeneration rune. You will lose Burnout on your chest if you run this, but you'll be able to cast a heal on yourself that leaves a buff that will heal you whenever you deal arcane damage, including arcane wands. The self-healing from this rune has been nerfed multiple times, but it still heals you from the damage done by Living Flame because it's spellfire damage, which is extremely broken. This is going to allow you to just face tank mobs while you're killing them with Living Flame and your arcane wand. You will almost always want to run Regeneration when you're AoEing. Speaking of AoE, at level 14 you get Arcane Explosion, which adds a massive punch to your AoE pulls. At this point you should consider AoEing literally everything that you're doing, even if you're just questing, especially anytime Living Flame is off cooldown. Healing you will get from Arcane Explosion damage is reduced by 80%, but it will still help you kill the mobs faster. You also get Frostbolt rank 3 at level 14, and if you are Frost, you'll be using this until rank 4 all the way at level 20, and then that's the last one that you'll get this entire phase. Around this level, Alliance mages can get Living Bomb from the Trogs in Lockmudon, but for Horde you have to do the Talking Head quest on Fenris Isle, which is a level 18 quest and requires you to be level 12 to start. I managed to get this done at level 16 and it wasn't that bad. All you really need to do this is to be smart and patient because you just need to 1v1 a level 19 Null a few times. Luckily we have Living Flame, so it's not impossible. Just farm the low level Nulls outside the city on the island, and then once you get the talking head. All you have to do is kill one mob on top of the grave, talk to the grave, and then I recommend dying at the base of the castle. Then whenever you run back, res on the roof of the castle, and then kill the patrolling gnoll and the gnoll guarding the bookshelf, and then hearth out. You will very likely run into other mages while you're doing this, so group up with them. Now whenever I finally got Living Bomb, I thought that the rest of the game was just going to be on easy mode, and I was right. This is the perfect ability to pull things with when you're AoEing, and then once they're all grouped up, just use Living Flame and tank them while the bombs go off. You'll get spam healed from Regeneration. Level 15, you can buy water again. Melon Juice is much better than the level 5 water that we can conjure. At level 18, you get Fireball rank 4, which is a must-have if you're killing mobs one by one. This is also the level that you get Amplify Magic, and I bet you're wondering, does this increase the healing that I get from Temporal Beacons? But unfortunately it doesn't. It only increases the healing done by Regeneration and Mass Regeneration spells themselves, which isn't all that much healing. It's still better than nothing, so buff yourself with it whenever you're full mana. Around this level you can also go get Arcane Blast from the Zormstrand and Ashenvale. Because it's a rune and not tied to a spell rank, it's usually your highest damage hard cast, even without the Arcane Blast stacks. I don't see many people questing with it, but it's an option for sure. It hits pretty hard, and you're unlikely to build up enough stacks to blow through that much mana. Now level 20 is huge. You can now conjure level 15 water, teleport to 2 out of 3 major cities, and blink. At this point, I highly recommend just AoE grinding the rest of the way because we have all the tools to do so, and we have access to tons of areas that are packed with fantastic mobs to grind. It depends on your situation though. If you can only play during peak contested hours, then it might be a good idea to just chill and keep on questing. Honestly, the hardest part of AoE grinding for me was keeping a temporal beacon on myself before I pulled. It's also a great idea to pick up some of the Eagle gear from the auction house, which can easily double or triple your mana pool for more arcane explosions. Bonus health gives you a bigger window to pull stuff with before you have to heal up from Living Flame. If you want to drop some cash, a Skycaller wand is a great investment because of its high arcane damage. Mages are also exceptional in dungeons, of course, as usual. Consider doing Wailing Caverns for the Crescent Staff, Dead Mines for the Emberstone Staff, and SFK for the multiple caster items that drop in there. Anything that's blue and has int on it is going to look good whenever you're trying to get into BFD groups. And you could easily trivialize these dungeons if you can coordinate with your tank and do really big pulls with Living Flame. As soon as you're level 22, you want to go train Arcane Explosion rank 2, and at level 24, there's Fireball rank 5. When you finally reach the finish line of level 25, you don't really get all that much other than the ability to drink Sweet Nectar, which I highly recommend buying some as soon as you ding. You can always sip the level 15 conjured water on the server ticks while you're drink walking. You can get this weak aura from my Discord that shows the ticks on your mana bar. Now that we are level 25, we have one big problem to solve. What spec do we go for raiding? Well, it might seem obvious looking at Warcraft logs that Fire is outperforming Arcane, but I did BFD as both just to see what would really be best for a beginner, and what I found out was actually really weird and surprising. Yes, we get Fireball rank 5 at level 24, and we have Burnout and Living Bomb and Living Flame, but this Fireball just costs an insane amount of mana. You compare it to Arcane Blast, it costs like 6 times more. On long fights, you will definitely run out of mana, even if you bring tons of mana pots, which you definitely should. The lesser mana potions are like 5 to 10 silver. Tried out this raid spec where you go Deep Fire for improved Scorch, and you try to keep up the stacks of it. It also helped out my Warlock tank spamming Searing Pain, but it wasn't reliable, and to maintain the stacks was a huge pain. It wasn't fun at all, and I absolutely wouldn't recommend it to you guys, even if it is the top damage. You can always try this out later once you get some gear and some Black Fathom mana oil. There's this other spec where you go Fire, but you get Elemental Precision and Frost instead of improved Scorch, and I wish that I just done that instead. As for the Arcane spec, there's the same two options of grabbing Elemental Precision and Frost, or going deeper into Arcane. The Elemental Precision is really just for your Living Flame resist chance, and you get Arcane hit rating from Arcane Focus. If you do go deep Arcane, you can get things like Wand spec, which is actually huge if you're doing pugs and the fights could go on forever, especially if you've done the raid before and you have a really good wand like the one that you get from the quest to kill Kelrus. But Arcane is actually lighter on mana than Fire, unless if you're doing a big mana dump rotation. The main thing that carries this spec is building up to 4 Arcane Blast charges and then doing a huge Living Flame because it just got buffed to work with them. This is going to make your Living Flame do insane damage and can easily boil endless number of enemies and be way more mana efficient than actually putting Living Bomb on all of those things. It's also great single target damage, but it isn't enough to completely carry you because it has a 1 minute cooldown, of course. For mage healing, I'd probably do this exact same thing, but just run Regeneration as my chest rune instead of Burnout and then put a Temporal Beacon on the tank. Overall, I think I'd recommend Fire to you guys. Arcane is much more adaptable and has more tools for a variety of different situations, but it's much harder to play. And if you can get those really short kill times, Fire is better anyway. In full greens your first time around, you probably expect 100 DPS from either spec. You should be able to get most of the results with way less work just going Elemental Precision Fire, doing Living Bomb, and then spamming Fireball and another Living Bomb whenever, the first Living Bomb explodes. However, you never want to Living Bomb anything that's not going to live for 12 seconds. Probably isn't going to be an easy time getting into groups either. I noticed it took me more time and work than my other characters where I could easily expect to do double the DPS, but it's not impossible, and I usually recommend Mage to new players, and Season of Discovery is no different. This class can match whatever playstyle to fit your skill curve. Lastly, I really want to stress how important Living Flame is. You get it so early on and it's so extremely powerful. On top of that, Blizzard has already buffed it, so be sure that you learn to get the most out of it. If you got the most of this video and made it this far, be sure to to drop a like or dislike and let me know what class you want to see next. See ya.